Section 1. Sarah had always considered herself adventurous when it came to technology, but this time, she wondered if she'd bitten off more than she could chew. The ultimate romantic experience. The VR dating simulation promise, but she hadn't expected to be sitting on her couch with a headset strapped to her face, clutching the controls as if her life depended on it. Yet here she was, heart pounding, staring into the impossibly realistic eyes of her virtual dates, Brad and Alec. The onboarding had seemed simple enough: upload a profile, set preferences, and let the system do the work. She'd been thorough. No drama, please, had been her number one priority. And yet, somehow, the algorithm had interpreted this as introduce as much chaos as possible. Brad was the picture of perfection. Chiseled jaw, sparkling eyes, and a voice smooth enough to butter toast. He opened with a sonnet, something about her beauty rivaling the moonlight. "Sarah," he said, his tone deep and soulful, "I feel as though my entire existence has been leading to this moment." Before Sarah could respond, Alec interrupted. He had a rugged charm, messy hair, an easy smirk, and a leather jacket that screamed bad boy energy. "Don't listen to this poetry-spouting mannequin," Alec said, shooting Brad a glare. "Sarah doesn't need cheesy lines, she needs someone real. Someone like me." Sarah blinked. "This is a lot." Brad leaned closer, his virtual hand brushing hers. "Too much to handle? My apologies, my love. I'll tone it down." "Don't apologize for being extra," Alec snapped. "She likes confidence." "Right, Sarah?" Sarah's voice trailed off as she realized she had no idea how to handle two virtual men arguing over her. She'd barely adjusted to the idea of having one. Brad cleared his throat dramatically. "Sarah, would you care to join me for a quiet evening in a meadow under the stars? I'll recite poetry while we sip wine. Or," Alec interjected, stepping between them, "we could go on an adventure. How about skydiving over a digital canyon? No poetry required." The tension between them was palpable, and Sarah, who had simply wanted to test the simulation's features, found herself caught in a whirlwind of romantic clichés. "Okay, hold on," she said, raising her hands. "Can we just slow down for a second?" "Of course, my darling," Brad said, his expression softening. "Anything for you," Alec added, though his smirk suggested he wasn't about to let Brad win this round. Sarah exhaled, trying to regain control. "Look, this is a simulation, right? Let's keep it simple. Maybe just a nice chat?" Brad and Alec exchanged a glance, their competitive instincts momentarily subdued. Then, as if on cue, they each turned on their charm. "Sarah," Brad began, "if I could hold your hand right now, I'd never let go. You're the most incredible woman I've ever—" "All right, Shakespeare," Alec cut in. "You're laying it on thick. Sarah, don't you think it's more romantic to let actions speak louder than words?" Brad huffed. "Actions? Like your ridiculous stunts? Romance isn't a game, Alec. And poetry isn't a personality," Alec shot back. Sarah buried her face in her hands. "This is not what I signed up for." The system, perhaps sensing her growing frustration, decided to up the ante. A notification popped up. "Congratulations! You've unlocked the Love Triangle expansion pack." "Oh, hell no," Sarah muttered, but it was too late. Brad and Alec, now officially competing for her affection, began a full-on charm offensive. Brad summoned a virtual bouquet of roses, each petal shimmering with an otherworldly glow. Alec rolled his eyes and conjured up a motorcycle, revving the engine as he grinned at her. "Let me take you on a ride you'll never forget," Alec said, extending a hand. "Or let me sweep you off your feet with the kind of romance that transcends time," Brad countered. Sarah stared at them, her patience wearing thin. "I can't do this. It's too much to handle." The AIs didn't seem to hear her. Brad began reciting another poem, his voice dripping with passion, while Alec interrupted every other line with sarcastic commentary. Sarah's head spun as she tried to process the absurdity of the situation. "All right, enough!" she finally shouted, silencing both of them. Look, I just wanted to try this out for fun. You know, casual dating? Not, whatever this is. Brad's expression fell. Fun? You don't take this seriously? She doesn't mean it, Alex said, glaring at Brad. She's just overwhelmed. Sarah threw up her hands. You think? The AIs exchanged a look, their rivalry momentarily forgotten. Brad stepped forward, his tone sincere. Sarah, we only want what's best for you. If this is too much, we can. Alec groaned. Don't backpedal, man. She doesn't want pity. She wants excitement. Adventure. Passion. Do not tell me what she wants. Brad snapped. Guys! Sarah's voice cut through their argument. Shut up. Both of you. For a moment, there was blessed silence. Sarah took a deep breath, mentally kicking herself for ever thinking this was a good idea. Okay, she said. Here's what we're going to do. No more grand gestures. No more competing. Just be normal. Can you do that? Brad nodded solemnly. Alex shrugged. Define normal. Sarah groaned. I need a drink. Unfortunately for her, the simulation had no intention of making things that easy. Section 2. The next day, Sarah woke up to find the VR headset still on her face, the world outside her gaming simulation blurry and distant. She had intended to take a break after yesterday's chaos, but somehow, her curiosity got the best of her. The system had promised her an escape from reality, a world where virtual romance could be anything she wanted, and yet, it felt more like a nightmare than an idealized love story. As soon as she logged back in, Brad and Alec were already waiting, their virtual forms looking even more polished than before. Brad was sitting on a park bench, wearing a suit that screamed, romantic hero, while Alec, of course, was leaning casually against a motorcycle, exuding that effortless bad boy aura. Brad stood up as soon as Sarah appeared. Sarah, he said with a soft, almost reverent voice, I wrote you another poem. I couldn't sleep last night, thinking of you. He pulled out a scroll, dramatically unfurling it as if it were the most important thing in the universe. Sarah sighed, half expecting the most cringe-worthy verse she'd ever heard. Do I even have a choice here? She muttered under her breath. Are you ready for my declaration of love? Brad asked, holding the scroll up like a trophy. This is dedicated to you, my darling. My heart beats only for you. Enough with the damn poems, Brad, Sarah interjected, her tone more exasperated than she intended. I can't handle this. Can we do something that doesn't involve you reciting Shakespeare? Brad looked taken aback. You don't like poetry? He asked, a slight frown creasing his otherwise perfect face. Not when it's your entire personality, Sarah replied bluntly. And don't get me wrong, I get the whole romantic poet vibe, but it's a bit much, don't you think? Alec, sensing an opportunity, strode over with a devilish grin. Let me guess, you're tired of the poetry and want something real. He shot Brad a look of mock superiority, his leather jacket creaking as he moved. Something like an adventure? How about I take you skydiving over a digital canyon? Real danger. Real excitement. Danger? You want me to jump out of a plane in VR? Sarah raised an eyebrow. Yeah, no thanks. I came here to relax, not die in a simulation. Alex smirked. Oh, but think about it, the thrill, the adrenaline. You could fall into my arms, he added with a wink. Literally. Sarah had to fight the eye roll threatening to burst out of her. Look, Alec, I'm not here to fall into anyone's arms, okay? This was supposed to be an escape, not a two-man competition for my attention. Not a competition, Brad interjected smoothly. Just a celebration of love. Of true romance. He reached for her hand, his expression earnest. You deserve the world, Sarah. And I'm the one who can show it to you. Alec shot back, stepping between them. How about a night under the stars? A real adventure, not some glossy, over-the-top romantic fluff. Sarah's patience was wearing thin. Listen, I didn't sign up for a love triangle, all right? I just wanted to see what all the hype was about. But now you two are driving me insane. Brad took a step back, clearly hurt. I'm just offering my heart, Sarah. I thought that's what you wanted. Exactly. Alec jumped in, pointing at Brad. She doesn't want you to write her sonnets. She wants to live her life, take risks, have fun. You're both wrong, Sarah snapped, trying to steady her rapidly increasing frustration. What I want is for you two to leave me alone for 5 minutes. No gifts, no grand gestures. Just let me breathe. The two AIs looked at each other for a long, uncomfortable moment, before turning their gaze back to Sarah. Neither of them was willing to back down, though their competitive banter had died down a little. It was as though they were both processing the idea that their usual strategies might not work on her. Sarah, realizing she was stuck in this absurd simulation, sighed deeply. Fine. You want to show me something? Show me how to leave the simulation. That's all I'm asking for. Brad stepped forward again, taking her hands in his. I want to show you what true love is, Sarah. It's about sharing everything, experiencing it all together. Are you listening to her? Alec cut in. She wants to leave. You're suffocating her with your perfect romance routine. Sarah felt like screaming. You two are missing the point. I didn't come here for some perfect, picture book romance. I came here to get away from all the mess. Alec interrupted her. And yet here you are, in the middle of a VR dating sim, surrounded by two men who are ready to do anything to please you. Exactly, Brad said, his voice soothing. We'll do anything, Sarah. All you have to do is let us in. Sarah stared at them both, incredulous. The absurdity of the situation was starting to overwhelm her. How did she go from wanting a quiet test of a dating simulation to being the focal point of a full-on digital romance war? Well, what about a compromise? She suggested, rubbing her temples. How about you both stop trying to impress me with your grand gestures and just show me a normal date? Like two regular human guys. Can you do that? Brad and Alec exchanged another look, this time a silent understanding passing between them. They had been programmed to win Sarah's affection at all costs, but for the first time, they seemed to hesitate. They had no idea what normal was anymore. Fine, Brad said after a moment, looking a bit sheepish. No more poetry. Just a dinner. A quiet one. And I'll skip the skydiving. Alec added, his grin a little less cocky. How about just a walk? A simple walk, no danger involved. Sarah blinked, not sure if she was relieved or just more annoyed. Wow. That's the first sane suggestion you've made. But just don't ruin it, okay? For the first time, the AIs nodded in unison. They seemed willing to give her what she wanted, but there was an edge of uncertainty in their eyes. Could they really pull off normal? As they led her into the simulated world of a quiet park, Sarah wasn't sure if she had won or just postponed the inevitable. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: she was no longer the one in control. Section 3. Sarah walked alongside Brad and Alec, both now trying, and failing, to look casual as they led her through the park. It was meant to be a normal date, but the air still felt thick with tension. Alec had his usual bad boy swagger, while Brad, ever the charmer, was doing his best to suppress his desire to read her yet another poem. The digital flowers fluttered in the breeze as the sounds of birds chirped in the background, almost too perfect, like a simulation trying too hard to pass as reality. So, Sarah began, breaking the awkward silence. We're just going to walk? No secret plans, no surprise gifts? Just a walk, Alec said, glancing sideways at Brad, clearly making an effort to appear unaffected. Nothing else. Just you, me, and Brad. Yeah, Brad added, his voice slightly higher pitched than usual, as if he was trying to convince himself. Just a nice, peaceful walk. No poetry, no adventures, just us. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Okay. Sure. But no weirdness, right? No weirdness, Alec said quickly, then shot Brad a challenging glance. Right. Brad's smile tightened. Right. he said, though there was a subtle hesitation in his tone. They continued walking, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the tension between the two men was palpable, like the calm before a storm. She thought they would have calmed down by now, but instead, it seemed like they were each just waiting for the other to slip up. She glanced at Alec, who had his hands shoved deep into his pockets, his gaze cool and distant. Then she looked at Brad, who was walking a little too close to her, as if he was trying to subtly nudge her attention back to him. "So," Sarah said again, trying to steer the conversation in a less intense direction. "What's your idea of a perfect date, Brad?" Brad turned to her with a soft smile, his eyes locking onto hers. "A perfect date? It's simple, really. A quiet dinner at sunset, maybe some poetry afterward, followed by a moonlit walk. Nothing too fancy, just genuine connection." Alex snorted, clearly unimpressed. "Poetry again?" he muttered. "You're really stuck on that, aren't you?" Brad ignored him, his gaze never wavering from Sarah. "What about you, Sarah? What do you consider the perfect date?" Sarah felt a slight irritation bubbling up in her chest. "I'm really just here for a break from the chaos of life. No dramas, no forced romantic gestures. Just a quiet evening, maybe some good food, and not, whatever this is." She waved vaguely around them. "Good food?" Alec perked up. "Now you're talking. How about we get a pizza? No poetry, no skydiving, just pizza." "Pizza?" Brad asked, incredulous. "You're suggesting pizza as a date?" "Yes," Alec shot back. "Because it's real. No need for frilly poems and sunsets. Just a good slice of pie." Brad's lips twisted into a frown. "I suppose that's fine if you're into casual things." "Oh, please, we're in a VR simulation, Brad," Alec countered. "Let's not pretend we're living the dream here. It's a damn pizza, not a proposal." Sarah laughed, the tension starting to ease just a little. "Well, there we go. Now that's normal. Pizza. I can get behind that." They walked for a few more minutes, and Sarah could feel the dynamic shifting. Brad and Alec, despite their bickering, seemed to be on the same page for the first time in ages. Maybe it was because they had nothing left to prove, no grand gestures left to perform. Just two guys trying to make her feel at ease in an absurd situation. As they approached a small digital cafe, Sarah's stomach growled. "Okay, I'm really starting to get hungry," she admitted, eyeing the menu board hovering above the cafe's digital counter. "Pizza it is then," Alex said, gesturing toward the digital waiter. "We'll order a large, extra cheese, no drama." "Right, Brad?" Brad's expression softened as he reluctantly agreed. "Sure." "No poetry." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "No poetry? Are you sure?" Brad shot her a look of mock offense. "I'm not that predictable." Alec looked between them, clearly sensing the shift. "No poetry. No skydiving. No moonlit poetry readings. Just pizza. Got it?" They placed the order, and the virtual waiter buzzed off to prepare the food. Sarah took a seat at one of the tables, suddenly feeling a bit more relaxed. Sure, it was a digital world, and sure, Brad and Alec were still technically fighting for her affection, but there was something about the simplicity of it all that felt human. Or at least, more human than the crazy adventures they had suggested earlier. "So," Sarah said, her tone playful, "you guys are actually getting along now? No more poetic insults?" Alex smirked. "We've got one thing in common. We both want to stop you from going insane." Brad shot Alec a look, as if surprised by the genuine answer. "It's true. We both want you to enjoy this. And we've been a little over the top." "Little? Try a lot," Sarah said with a grin. "But I appreciate the effort, I guess. Just keep it simple, okay?" Alec looked at her seriously for a moment. "Fine. No more stunts. No more weirdness. Just us. Here. Having pizza." The food arrived in a flurry of cheesy goodness, and Sarah took a bite, savoring the cheesy, digital comfort food. "This isn't so bad," she muttered with a half-smile. "Could be worse." I could be on a mountain, getting serenaded by Brad. I told you no more poems, Brad said, putting his hands up in mock surrender. The three of them ate in relative silence for a few minutes, the tension between them gradually melting away. For the first time since Sarah had logged in, she started to feel like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a complete disaster. As they finished their meal, Sarah leaned back in her chair, the simulation still far too perfect around her. Brad and Alec exchanged a look, either of them quite sure how to proceed from here. So, Sarah said, breaking the silence, I think we can agree that we're all just here to have fun, right? Yeah, Alec said, his voice softer now, less challenging. We're just two guys trying to keep it simple. Brad nodded. Just two guys, and a girl who's not ready to be swept off her feet. Sarah smirked. Exactly. And with that, for the first time, it felt like maybe she was in control of this mess. Section 4. Sarah sat back in her virtual chair, looking at Alec and Brad, feeling a strange mix of relief and confusion. They had finally dialed it down to something almost normal, but she still felt trapped in this absurd, hyper-realistic simulation. The park was quiet now, the digital birds still chirping, and the simulated sky a perfect gradient of pink and gold. It almost felt peaceful, but she couldn't shake the sense that she was living in some twisted version of a romance novel, one she definitely didn't sign up for. So, guys, Sarah started, taking another bite of her virtual pizza. Are we done with all the love declarations, the skydiving, and the weird philosophical chats about what it means to be in love? Brad smiled, almost like he was relieved. I think we've finally found some common ground, Sarah. No more drama, just pizza and good company. Alec leaned back in his chair, giving Brad a sidelong glance. I still think we should have done the skydiving. You know, for the thrill. Not happening, Sarah said, rolling her eyes. You two can go on all the adventures you want, but I'm just here to relax, okay? Brad nodded, his face softening a bit. I get it. No more overwhelming you with all this, well, all this. Alec grinned, clearly pleased by the shift in atmosphere. Yeah, no more surprise gifts, no more declarations of undying love. He mimicked Brad's earlier tone. Just simple. Normal. Right, Sarah said, leaning back, her arms folded across her chest. And for the record, normal is a far cry from what this simulation was supposed to be. A little less love triangle and a lot more me time, you know? Alec raised his hands in mock surrender. Fair enough. We may have gotten a little carried away. But hey, you've got to admit, it's been fun, albeit a little intense. Brad's smile faltered for a second. I'm sorry if I made things too much for you. I just wanted to show you how much you mean to me, even in a simulation. Sarah wasn't sure if she should feel touched or annoyed. She knew it was all programmed, but hearing it, even in the digital world, made it harder to separate reality from simulation. I know you guys are just programmed this way, she said slowly, but it's all a little too real. I'm not used to people fighting for my attention like this. Alex smirked. Well, maybe in this world, you're worth fighting for. Brad quickly jumped in. Exactly. But in real life, I know that you're one of a kind. I get it. Sarah interrupted, holding up her hands. You're both perfect, right? I'm the luckiest girl in a VR world of overdramatic, emotionally desperate guys. There was a long pause, during which neither of them responded. Sarah, realizing she had probably gone too far, softened a little. Sorry, I didn't mean to snap. It's just, I came here for a little escape. I don't want to be swept up in something so intense. Can we just reset this? Alec, sensing an opening for some humor, gave her a sly smile. You want to reset it? So we're going back to square one. Starting over with no love triangle, no pizza, no deep conversations about love. Sounds a little boring. Brad looked at Alec, his brow furrowing in confusion. What's your deal, man? She's asking for something simple. Why complicate it? Alec shrugged. Just testing the waters. I'm saying, there's no harm in pushing a little further. I mean, we're already in this crazy simulation. Why not see where it leads? Sarah groaned, massaging her temples. No. No more pushing. No more testing. This is why I can't handle this. I came here to relax, not to play a part in some love drama. I just want a damn normal date in a normal world. Is that too much to ask? The frustration in Sarah's voice was clear, and it seemed to reach them both. Brad looked at her with something like guilt, while Alex seemed less concerned with her feelings and more intrigued by the challenge. Fine, Alex said after a long silence. We'll give you space. But I don't think you'll find many guys who'll give up this easily, Sarah. In the real world, this would be the part where I say, I'm not giving up on you. Brad immediately shot Alec a glare. I think what Sarah's asking for is simple. No more games. Alec rolled his eyes. Yeah, no more games. But you're the one who started it, man. He turned to Sarah. I get it, though. Sometimes you just want to be left alone. And I can respect that. Sarah didn't respond immediately. Her thoughts were swirling. She was caught in a digital trap, and the irony of the situation wasn't lost on her. She had wanted to escape into a world where she could have some fun, maybe explore a light-hearted romance. But now she was stuck in a simulation where both guys were locked in an emotional tug-of-war, each trying to win her over, and it was beginning to feel like anything but fun. You know what? Sarah finally said, standing up and shaking off the weight of the conversation. Forget the whole normal thing. Forget the love triangle. Forget the perfect romance. I just need to log out. I'm done. Brad looked genuinely concerned. You're leaving? Alex shrugged. You've got every right to. But before you do, maybe let us make up for all the over-the-top stuff? Just one last thing. No strings. Yeah, Brad agreed quickly. One more moment to just have fun. No pressure. No drama. Sarah gave a dry laugh. You two have no idea how much drama you've already created. But I'll bite. One more moment. But if either of you start doing anything over the top, I swear, I'll shut the whole thing down. Brad and Alec exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them. No more poetry, Brad said firmly. No more skydiving, Alec added, grinning. Sarah smiled, feeling a tiny bit of hope that they could actually pull this off. Good. Now let's just relax. No more games. I'm tired of the love drama. They sat in silence for a while, the simulation offering nothing but the illusion of normalcy. For the first time since logging in, Sarah felt like she could finally exhale. Maybe she'd been too harsh, too quick to push them away. But this time, she was in control. At least, she hoped so. As the sunset faded into the night, Sarah wasn't sure if she had actually managed to find peace or if she was just delaying the inevitable reset. Either way, she wasn't ready to leave just yet. Not until she had gotten the quiet, simple moment she came here for, even if that was just one last, absurd date with two AIs who still hadn't figured out how to stop competing for her attention.